अब ये YouTube पे भी आएगा.
Yeah. Good. You have taken a lot of pains, really.
Thank you, madam. Thank you.
सही करे. ठीक ओके.
Yeah. That's fine. YouTube check ಮಾಡಿ.
Also join.
Yeah. Mohan Babu. Hello. We'll begin sharply at 5:30.
Okay.
Okay, fine, no problem.
Mohan, you have to just check your camera. You have your face. It's going little upwards.
Okay. Any better?
And now it's better.
Yeah.
Little.
Like this?
No, you have to come to the center. You check in your mobile.
Okay.
In your mobile, it's clearly visible. How
Enter.
Hey, Rangappa bhai sahab.
Yeah.
Professor Rangappa sir, you have to unmute. Sir, Rangappa sir.
Yes, hello.
Your virtual background is ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ತೆಗ್ಬಿಡಿ sir. Kindly remove the virtual background. It is still there.
What?
Virtual background. Tell Preetham to remove the virtual background, sir.
Yeah, Mysore University.
Yeah.
And now
ಮಾತಾಡೋದಾ?
Preetham, remove the virtual background.
Yes.
Yeah, now it is okay. Yeah, now okay. Now okay, sir. You can speak to madam. Madam, we update you. Just
Okay, we removed.
yeah, remote. Now it's clearly visible. You can check in your mobile of yours or your students how you are.
Yeah, can you see now?
Yeah, now it's okay.
Okay, fine.
Fine.
ಇನ್ಬಿಲ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಪೀಕರ್ ಇನ್ಬಿಲ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಪೀಕರ್ ಎನೇಬಲ್ ಮಾಡಕನ
ಇಲ್ಲ ಬೇಡ ಇದೆ ಸರಿ ಇದೆ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಫುಲ್ ಕೊಟ್ಬಿಡಿ 100% ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ
ಸ್ಪೀಕರ್ ಎನೇಬಲ್ ಮಾಡು
ಓಕೆ
ಫುಲ್ ಇನ್ಕ್ರೀಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಸರ್
ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿ ಸೌಂಡ್ ಕಮ್ಮಿ
ಅದಲ್ಲ
ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಇದು ಮಾಡು
ಅನ್ಮ್ಯೂಟ್
ನಮ್ದಕ್ಕೆ ಆ ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ
ನಾವು ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಆಗಿ ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಸರ್, ತೊಂದರೆ ಇಲ್ಲ.
ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ?
ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ಲಿ ಆಡಿಬಲ್, ನೋ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್. So informally you can speak to madam so that we can discuss how the discussion will go on. Madam, you can speak to Professor Rangappa sir.
Yeah.
Hello, madam.
How is life there?
Yeah.
How is Karnataka?
Pandemic. Everyone facing lot of problems. They are living in a different world.
Naturally, it is a different world, entirely different world.
Yeah. So can you hear me clearly?
Of course.
Yeah. Okay.
Spotlight.
Together.
Good evening.
Yeah. How are you?
Sir, fine, thank you, sir. All the best, sir. Good luck.
ಇದಾಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀರಿ ಈಗ ಸ್ಪೀಕರ್ಗಳ
ಹೆಡ್ಫೋನ್ ಹಾಕೊಂಡಿರಿ, ಸರಿಯಾಗಿ ಕೇಳಿಸುತ್ತೆ ಇಲ್ವಾ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ.
ಆಲ್ ದಿ ಬೆಸ್ಟ್.
ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ಸರ್. ಮೇಡಮ್, ಗುಡ್ ಈವ್ನಿಂಗ್.
Good evening.
ಆಲ್ ದ ಬೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮೇಡಮ್, ಗುಡ್ ಲಕ್.
All the best. Thank you.
Madam, you have to bend your head a little down.
Did anybody, anyone from Indian Science Congress, or is the first time, madam?
This is for the first time, really.
Ah, very good. Yeah. Credit.
Congratulations to you and both the madam also and sir also,
Yeah.
because he has provided the opportunity for us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pandit?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Are you ready? Are the first session? All
Yeah.
the four we are here.
All the four are here. Sushma Yadav will be joining at 6 o'clock.
Sushma Yadav joins quick.
At 6 o'clock, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
So in the meanwhile, you can have a informal discussion.
Okay.
Your voice is quite clear. We will begin shortly at.
Professor Rangappa, after
Yeah.
long keynote address, I have to leave.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is the gallery view. When there is a question or so, you can discuss with the panelists.
No, she is going to inaugurate. Probably she.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, later go, no problem.
Okay.
But we will discuss.
Okay,
The
sir.
panel discussion should be held between us.
Your students are behind you.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's fine.
Yeah, many of my well-wishers and friends, they are, on the web.
Yes, sir. It is now it is live streamed on YouTube and Facebook also.
Yeah. Now there are 16 participants.
Yes, ma'am. They'll be joining. Screen.
The time now? 5:20.
ಸರ್ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಇದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಹೊರಟೋದ್ರೆ ಇದು ಪ್ಯಾನಲ್ ಡಿಸ್ಕಷನ್ ನೀವು ಒಬ್ಬರೇ ಇರ್ತೀರಲ್ವಾ?
ನಾನು ಅವ್ರು 3 ಜನ ಇರ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ, ಸುಷ್ಮಾ
ಒಬ್ರು, ನೀವು ಇಬ್ರೆ.
ಅವರು 3 ಜನ, ಇನ್ನು 4 ಜನ ಇದಾರಲ್ಲ, ಇನ್ನು 3 ಜನ ಇದಾರಲ್ಲ.
ಅವರು
ಇವರು ಲ್ಯೂಪಿನ್, ಬಾಬು ಅಂಡ್ ನಾವು ಗುರುಬಸವ ಇದು ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ಪಂಡಿತ್ 4-5 ಜನ ಇರ್ತೀವಿ.
ಓಕೆ ಸರ್. ಹೆಚ್ಚಿಗೆ ನೀವು ಒಬ್ಬರೇ ಉತ್ತರ ಕೊಡ್ಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಕಾಣುತ್ತೆ.
ಏನ್ ಮಾಡೋದು?
ಸರಿ ಸರ್.
Of course, when I have taken the responsibility, I must.
Yes, sir. ಅಲ್ಲ ಮೇಡಮ್ನವ್ರು ಕೊನೆಗೆ ಬರ್ತಾರಲ್ವಾ? ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ
again, or after the inauguration you go home. What is your madam?
Yeah. Really, actually, I am having so much work, so many DBT for my center. They are asking for so many queries, and there are so many things, annual report like that I have to submit as early as possible.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm busy in that only.
Indian Science Congress webinar ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. ಏನ್ ಸಮಾಚಾರ? ಇಲ್ಲ ಈಗ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಯ್ತು.
ಸರ್, ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಪಂಡಿತ್.
Yes, sir.
ಈಗ ಮೇಡಮ್ನವರು ಆಫ್ಟರ್ ದಿ ಇನಾಗ್ರೇಷನ್ ಶಿ ವಿಲ್ ಲೀವ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ.
Okay, we'll manage, sir. No problem.
How about giving vote of thanks to her?
Yeah, you
can give the vote of thanks at the end. No problem.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Your internet connection is unstable. Okay.
Very clear.
Pandit,
Yes, sir.
soon after, Sushma Yadav's
Special address.
briefing is there up there after the briefing. Let the other two speakers continue.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Okay. Then finally we take up the discussion.
Okay, sir.
That would be better, sir. Yeah.
Yes. Did you tell Babu and
Yeah,
Lupin?
yeah. Babu has already joined.
Yeah, Babu has joined. Lupin?
Lupi will join at 7.
Yeah. Yesterday I received two more, speakers by willingness, but by that time we had already, finished this.
Finally. Yes, sir.
One from Morocco, the second one from Singapore. They also asked me whether they can join, but the response was late.
Next time we'll consider.
Yeah, next time we'll do it. I'll get you the speaker's name.
Okay, so we have got 1 more minute.
Yeah.
ಇವರು ಇನಾಗ್ರೇಷನ್ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಏನ್ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂತ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊ.
Yeah, 5:30.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Number 1 ನಿಮಿಷ. To the international academic community, especially scientists who have joined from across the world. This is Dr. Guru Basra Swami Pandita, President of Karnataka Political Science Association. He is honored and privileged to present before you one-day international webinar titled The COVID-19 Pandemic, the Science and Research Towards a Sustainable, Healthy Society. Here, I would welcome you for the inaugural session. We have been joined by Dr. Vijayalakshmi Saxena. She is the General President of Indian Science Congress Association. She is the coordinator of Bioinformatics Infrastructure Facility Center of DBT Government of India. Former head of the Department of Zoology, Dayanand Girls PG College, Kanpur. And Madam will be delivering the inaugural address. Welcome, Dr. Vijayalakshmi Saxena.
Thank you.
We have also one more illustrious eminent scientist, Professor K.S. Rangappa. He has done his PhD, DSc, FRSc, FNSc from abroad. He is the Honorable Immediate Past General President of Indian Science Congress Association. He is the Chief Scientific Advisor, Senator Pharmaceutical Company Limited, Shenzhen, China. Former Vice Chancellor, University of Mysore. He shall be presenting a keynote address. Welcome, Professor K.S. Rangappa. And I'm very happy that he trusted his on me to prepare this and coordinate and organize this seminar. I thank you for that. And we have one more illustrious academic, Professor Sushma Yadav. She is the Honorable Member, University Grants Commission, New Delhi. She is the President of Indian Social Sciences Council, and she is the incumbent Vice Chancellor, BPS Women University, Haryana. Madam will be presenting a special address. I welcome Madam. She will be joining at 6 o'clock. We have in the second session, Professor Mauricio Martinelli Luperi, Professor of Economics, the Faculty of Economics, Administration and Accounting, University of Sao Paulo, Brazil. He will be presenting a special topic lecture on new developmentalism and macroeconomic policies for post-COVID-19. We have one more internationally renowned psychiatrist from University of Nottingham, Dr. Mohan Babu. He will be speaking on impact of COVID-19 on mental health. So we have one more distinguished academician, Professor Gangadhar from Bengaluru. He is the convener of Indian Science Congress Chapter, Bengaluru. He will be presenting a vote of thanks. May I now request Dr. Vijayalakshmi Saxena to present the inaugural address. I would also like to welcome all the panelists, attendees who have joined from across the world, all the academic students, research scholars, professors. Welcome one and all. Thank you, madam. Over to you, ma'am, for inaugural address.
Thank you, Dr. Guru Pandita. Very good evening to you all present here for this international webinar. Respected Professor Rangappa, immediate past General President, Indian Science Congress Association, and former Vice Chancellor, Mysore University. Professor Sushma Yadav, she is will join after some time, member UGC New Delhi and Vice Chancellor, BPS Women University, Haryana. Professor M. Lupin, Professor of Economics, University of Sao Paulo, Brazil. Dr. Mohan Babu, Clinical Secretary, University of Nottingham, UK. Professor Gangadhar, past General Secretary and Convener, Indian Science Congress Association, Bangalore Chapter. Dr. Guru Pandita, Organizing Secretary of today's webinar. All the participants of webinar, guest speakers, faculty members, panelists, students, ladies, gentlemen, and media personnel. First of all, I feel privileged to have been granted the opportunity to express my views on such a relevant topic. I wish to thank Professor Rangappa, immediate past General President, Indian Science Congress, Professor Gangadhar, past General Secretary, Indian Science Congress, and convener ISKA Bangalore chapter, as well as Dr. Guru Pandita, organizing secretary, for inviting me for this international webinar to share my views with you all. As you all know that coronavirus has destroyed the world. Crores of people around the world are facing a crisis. While all over is engaged in a battle to save precious lives, we have never seen or heard of such a crisis. This crisis is unthinkable as well as unprecedented for mankind. As a nation today, we stand at a very crucial juncture. Scientists have pointed out that corona will remain a part of our lives for a long time. But at the same time, we cannot allow this to happen that our lives will be confined only around the corona. Such a big disaster is a signal for India. It has brought a message and an opportunity. COVID-19 has shaken our education system to its core and shattered it across the globe. Each level of education faces unique challenges during this corona catastrophe. So today's webinar on the very relevant topic, the COVID-19 pandemic, the science and research for a sustainable, healthy society. Global cases of COVID-19 hit more than 11 million, according to a count maintained by Johns Hopkins University, a grim milestone in the spread of a pandemic that has caused vast human suffering, devastated the world's economy, and still threatens vulnerable populations, rich and poor alike. So, how to keep mentally healthy during uncertain times? The unprecedented, tough, and life struggling times which we have experimented and entered in this coronavirus pandemic scenario has adversely affected the mental well being state of each individual. No one knows how it is going to pan out or how long it is going to last for. An unintended consequence is that social distancing from our families, friends, neighbors, and colleagues would increase rate of depression, etc. Science is the greatest collective endeavor. Science generates solutions for everyday life and helps us to answer the great mysteries of the universe. Performing a kaleidoscope of functions for the benefit of our society, creating new knowledge, improving education, and increasing the quality of our lives. Science has optimum in nurturing and benefiting the nations. Science must respond to societal societal needs and global challenges, public understanding and engagement with science and citizen participation, including through the popularization of the science, are essential to equip citizens to make informed personal and professional choices. Government need to make decisions based on quality scientific information on issues such as health education, energy, biotechnology, and agriculture. National governments need to understand the research-oriented science behind major global challenges such as climate change, ocean health, biodiversity loss, and freshwater security, and of course, viruses to add to significant positive. Challenges today cut across the traditional boundaries of disciplines and stretch across the lifestyle of innovation, from research to knowledge development and its application. Science, technology, and innovation must be as socio-economic engines to drive a pursuit of more equitable and sustainable development. Our collective responsibility to protect vulnerable persons in global battle against COVID-19. Regional training seminars will be organized for science and research for a sustainable and healthy society, a zero tolerance policy against all forms of environmental and social policies, protection of human rights with a healthy mind as a governing factor, building peace in the minds of men and women. In brief, what we do or where we were are the questions to be pondered. Over the years, this concept has evolved to encompass a broad range of social and environmental issues. We are aware of the fact that the concept of a sustainable society has been around for decades. In 1981, Lester Brown, founder of the World Watch Institute, defined it as one that is able to satisfy its need without diminishing the chance of future generations. Many activists picture a sustainable society as a Venn diagram of three overlapping concerns to work in harmonious coordination, that is to say, environment, social, and economic, with well-designed infrastructural strategies. What is the criterion for imagining a 21st century sustainable society? Primarily, it is self-sufficient, non-polluting, renewable sources provide the power to drive sustainable energy systems respecting law of nature. More efficient farming techniques and new technologies improve yields and reduce consumption, help eliminate waste. This is the foremost thought of productivity enhancement. Economic systems need to be made transparent, ethical, and built on fair and equitable practices. And companies employ sustainable methods of production and distribution for which focus on policy formulations. Their effective implementation is essential for a healthy, sustainable society. Raise public awareness. Countries generally do not take direct actions to promote sustainable practices unless they receive substantial pressure from citizens. Therefore, individuals should make carefully thought choices. Websites, speeches, movements, and rallies all contribute to raising public awareness. Promote education. Promoting free and fair access to a quality education for all children without gender discrimination produces a number of positive outcomes. It increases children's level of understanding about the environment. It empowers them to make personal choices about family size and lifestyle, and it provides the world with informed and productive citizens. increase government and business investment, new technologies and infrastructure built using environmentally sound practices have the potential to transform modern society. Here, will, ability, and determination all are required to create creative, sustainable investment destinations, conserve resources, and eliminate waste. Nature has endowed us with finite resources. Large scale efforts to conserve energy and water will have an impact, but personal choices are just as important. Hence, waste management and limiting our consumption's preferences with the best choices would serve interest of future generations. Reevaluate values. Is the current culture of disposable consumerism, fossil fuel dependency, and heavy automobile use what we hope to pass on to our children? Do we wish to overcome inequalities in education, standards of living, and economic opportunity? Such challenges define and shape our actions. Sustainable health is a personal commitment to maintaining and taking responsibility for your own health through preventive means, taking excessive care of our lifestyle, and reverting to ancient forms of medicines like Ayurveda, etc., leads to a balanced, healthy mental state. However, the health controversy persists. Health is a three-way balance of genetics, environment, and state of mind. Most often, genetics and environment are out of our control. Ultimately, the only thing we can control is our state of mind, either making it toxic by one edible habit or realizing the significance of sound, healthy mind. Taking responsible care is the rule here. Now, the question arises, what exactly the sustainable health is? A preventive approach, a balance of mind, body, and spirit, lifestyle management, taking natural medicines to maintain your health and hopefully preventing illness before they take shape, leading and maintaining a balanced life by taking a middle road approach. Not too little, not too much is the key. Now, what are the aims? Taking a responsible concern for one's own health through a timely proactive approach rather than a reactive approach. Current approach. Most doctors fail to realize this because they and the industry work on reactive approach and they are trained to think in a reactive approach. In ancient China, the situation was certainly penalizing for failing render proper duty. If a patient was sick, then the doctor was fined for failing his or her duty. Today, we are ruled by pharmaceutical companies and health insurance companies using a fair approach. Nearly all reactive medicines have side effects. Some have even been well documented by researchers and doctors. Pointing example is the arthritis pill Vioxx which has reportedly killed over 1 lakh people in the United States since its introduction and over 300 people in Australia. Wax TM relieves pain of arthritis but triggers heart attack and strokes. There are 10 principles of sustainable health. Maintain a balanced life, that is middle road approach. Have a healthy diet. Exercise regularly. Sleep well. Maintain a regular rhyme in life. Take preventive natural medicines to maintain health. Engage in spiritual practices manifested through meditation, mind training, and raising personal consciousness. Learn to live and laugh more. Building discipline in ourselves through mind training and raising awareness. Take a simpler approach to life. This assists in easing out stress, which is a deterrent healthy mental well-being. The World Health Organization defines an environmentally sustainable health system as one that improves, maintains, or restores health while minimizing negative impacts on the environment and leveraging opportunities to restore and improve it to the benefit of the health and well-being of current and future generations. Thus, implication is efficient resource utilization. According to WHO, Sustainable Development Goal is ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. Health financing and the recruitment, development, training and retention of the health workforce in developing countries are the thrust areas of present scenario. UNDP goal is also good health and well-being. We are no doubt traversing a progressive society sustainably. Life expectancy has increased dramatically. Infant and maternal mortality rates have declined. We have turned the tide on HIV and malaria deaths have halved. As per 2030 agenda, good health is perfectly correlated to sustainable development. It takes into account widening economic and social inequalities, rapid urbanization, threats to the climate and the environment, and emerging challenges of infections and non-communicable diseases. Emerging global health priorities not explicitly exclude in the SDGs, including antimicrobial resistance, also integrate demand action. The world is off track to achieve the health-related SDGs. Progress has been uneven, both between and within countries. Diversity is clearly evident among nations in this context. Multi-sectoral, right-based, and gender-sensitive approaches are essential to address inequalities, target sustainable societies, and assign priority to mental state of health. I feel privileged in reproducing a quote from the very motivational and exhilarating speech of our most revered Prime Minister Modi ji. He had delivered in connection with COVID-19. For a developing nation like ours, with a large population, the growing challenge of coronavirus is not a normal situation. In such a time, only one mantra works. The world is healthy when we are healthy. So let us hope and pray for a better tomorrow. I take privilege in humbly declaring that such academic gatherings through webinar should indispensably form an integral part of course curriculum in pursuit of a student's career prospects. With these views, I inaugurate the webinar. All the best wishes and a grand success for this international webinar. Thank you all for patient hearing.
Thank you, madam. You have very nicely touched upon many issues of sustainable health, sustainable environment. You have talked about inequalities in education and health. We should follow the path of middle path, and you have touched upon the indigenous Ayurveda also. So your focus is more on should be on preventive cure of diseases, and later at the later stage looking at it, and also you have looked into the mental makeup. Disciplining mind is very important for maintaining good health by physical exercise and all. And we also focused on WHO's views on uh, world health, how it should be. So it's a very good presentation, madam. May I now request uh, Professor Gangadhar to present the vote of thanks for the madam. Professor Gangadhar, you have to unmute. Professor Gangadhar, sir. You have to unmute, sir. You have to unmute.
Good evening to all of you. Honorable General President of Indian Science Congress Association, Professor Vijayalakshmi Saxena ji, respected Professor K.S. Rangappa, the immediate past General President of Indian Science Congress Association and former Vice Chancellor of University of Mysore, distinguished invited speaker, Professor K. Mohan Babu, and the Dr. Pandita, organizing secretary of this international one-day webinar.
Sir, what of thanks? Now, now only to Professor Vijay Section. She will be leaving.
Yes, I know. This international webinar is being inaugurated by the chief guest of today's webinar, Professor Vijayalakshmi Saxena ji, the General President of Indian Science Congress Association. Madam, in her inaugural address, has clearly stated that the impact of COVID-19 pandemic has shattered the human life and the global economy. And she has also explained how to maintain the good health of the mankind. Madam, on behalf of Indian Science Congress Association, Bangalore chapter, I would like to extend our heartfelt thanks to you. Thank you, Madam.
I would like to thank Dr. Gangadhar for presenting vote of thanks to Professor Vijayalakshmi Saxena. Madam is a little busy, so I thank you, Madam, for on behalf of Indian Science Congress Association, on behalf of the organizers. Thank you. Thank you, Madam. And now, may I now request Professor K.S. Rangappa to present the keynote address. What to you, sir?
Good evening, everyone. At the outset, I was thankful to the General President of the Indian Science Congress Association, Dr. Vijayalakshmi Saxena, to provide me the opportunity to conduct this webinar on the COVID-19 pandemic, the science and research towards a sustainable, healthy society. Yes.
Sir, kindly hold on for a second, sir. Some technical issues you are not seeing. Just pause a little. Okay, sir. Now you can continue.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Madam, for inaugurating this webinar on behalf of the Indian Science Congress Association. And also, I must thankful to the speakers, Dr. Sushma Yadav, Dr. Mohan Babu, and also Dr. Lupin, for giving us the time to talk to the people of the country and elsewhere. I'm basically a scientist. I would like to speak some science about the COVID-19 pandemic. Today people throughout the globe are living in a fear of novel coronavirus. Yes, there has never been anything in our lifetimes like coronavirus. A global pandemic is scaring the living daylights out of all of us. While the governments are struggling to control this deadly pandemic, a pall of uncertainty and fear has descended upon the world. The rapid spread of the disease led to the unprecedented lockdowns and restrictions, changing every sphere of human life. Despite of remarkable advances in science, medicine, the world continues to be confronted by long-standing, emerging, and re-emerging infectious diseases threats. The threats being differed widely in terms of severity and probability. Newly emerging viruses such as the Ebola virus, severe acute respiratory syndrome, what you call SARS, Middle East respiratory syndrome, MERS, coronavirus, avian influenza virus, and severe. These are the viruses are severe threats to public health and have become a global concern. Newly emerging viruses could be either a novel, previously undescribed virus or a variant of previously known virus. By the end of 2019, a number of pneumonia cases of unknown causes emerged in Wuhan of China. A few weeks later, in January 2020, deep sequencing analysis from lower respiratory tract samples identified a novel virus, severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus, what's called short-term SARS-CoV-2. On February 11th of 2020, WHO named the disease as COVID-19. And after a month, when the disease started spreading throughout the world, causing deaths, WHO declared the pandemic status. Coronavirus is an RNA virus with a typical crown-like appearance in electron microscope due to the presence of glycoprotein spikes on its envelope. They are known to infect the neurological, respiratory, enteric, and hepatic systems. Coronavirus firmly can be classified into alpha, beta, and gamma and delta coronaviruses. It is important to see that there are similarities in the symptoms between COVID-19 and earlier beta coronavirus such as fever, dry cough, dyspnea, and bilateral ground glass opacities on chest CT scans. Previous outbreaks of coronavirus include severe acute respiratory syndrome, what is called SARS-CoV, and Middle East respiratory syndrome, what is called MERS-CoV, which were previously characterized as agents causing great threat to the public health. Genomic sequence analysis of COVID-19 showed 88% identity with two bat-derived SARS-like coronaviruses, indicating that mammals are most likely linked between COVID-19 and humans. Now, our SARS-CoV-2 bind to their target cells through ACE2 receptors, which is expressed in lungs causing respiratory complications. Symptoms of COVID-19 infection appear after an incubation period of approximately 5 days. The number of days, which ranges from the period of onset of symptoms to death, it's between 6 to 41 days, with the median of 14 days. Symptoms of this disease mainly include fever, cough, fatigue, sputum production, headache, and hematostasis, diarrhea, dyspnea, and lymphonia. Individuals who remain asymptomatic can also transmit the virus. Transmission also occurs when being in close contact with infected person and also through respiratory droplets while coughing or sneezing. A very high risk of fatality is found among elderly and immunocompromised patients. Our RT-PCR means real-time polymerase chain reaction is the most suggested diagnostic technique to detect the positive nucleic acid of SARS-CoV-2 in sputum, throat swabs, and secretions of lower respiratory tract sample. As of now, there is no specific antiviral drug available to treat this disease. However, mechanical ventilation and oxygen therapy is one of the major treatment methods followed by administration of antiviral drugs such as chloroquine, hydroxychloroquine, lopinavir, ritonavir, etc. These have demonstrated as drugs of remarkable efficacy and acceptable safety, which are currently people are using. Then remdesivir is another nucleotide analog that has activity against SARS-CoV-2 in vitro and related coronavirus. Dexamethasone, which is one of the glucocorticoid, a subgroup of steroid hormones, is another drug used in the treatment. It regulates the immune system by entering cell's nucleus and suppressing the expression of genes that encode inflammatory cytokines and thus increasing expression of gene that encodes annexin A1, a protein which limit immune system overreactions. A great deal of efforts are being made by scientists and researchers to find effective drug against coronavirus. Today, it's unfortunate to see the exponential rise in the number of cases causing deaths at alarming rate. Intense surveillance and isolation protocols are required so as to control further spread of the disease. Prevention is critical. Public has to do their part with good hygiene, mask, and social distancing. Self-isolation is proved to be the most recommended measure to prevent the spread of infection. Practicing healthy lifestyle with the intake of food which boosts immunity is one of the other important aspects. Take food rich in vitamin D, vitamin A, zinc, selenium, cod liver oil, which enhances immunity. Ensure adequate level of iron and vitamin B12. India being the second largest in population and more densely packed would face an unprecedented crisis as ever before. COVID-19 is likely to have a social, economic, and political impact. Indian economy is already been in the midst of slowdown with a recession in exports and manufacturing. The airline and hospitality sectors are already on brink. The most severely hit are the daily wages, laborers, and migrant workers who make 45% of the workforce. Even agriculture, production and marketing, corporate are the worst hit, facing a major setback. A sharp decline in economic activity and rise in unemployment will lead to a deterioration of household and corporate finances. The pandemic has significantly disrupted the education sector as well, which is the critical determinant of a country's economic future. It's now the governments which must bring effective infection control protocols and measures to manage country's economy. Imposition of lockdown help countries in lowering their number of cases. However, it's not the long-term solution. The more widespread testing and quicker results helps relieve pressure on hospitals. Information sharing among health professionals worldwide is crucial. Improving healthcare facility and providing necessary protection to the frontline workers is must. Providing nutrition and livelihood to the newly needy must be the top priority. Employment schemes and food for work should be implemented. A multi-pronged strategy is necessary to manage the crisis and build a resilient Indian education system in the long term. Novel coronavirus is not the first pandemic faced by the world. Poor health facilities, lack of awareness, and dearth of basic necessities are few things common to all pandemics. Indian government, together with WHO, is expected to bring the best effective measures in managing this disaster. Also, each one of us must cooperate and act responsible in combating this disease. There is no use in getting anxiety or fear or the pandemic, though it looks chaotic outside. Everything has an end. Treatment will be definitely be found. Vaccines will be identified. Markets will rebound and life will definitely flourish. Take all precautionary measures, create awareness among other people, keep a positive hope, and spend your energy on prayer, meditation, pranayama, and positive affirmations. I wish and pray for good health to all the people of the world. Thank you, everyone, for giving me an opportunity to deliver this small keynote address. Thank you, everyone. Can you unmute?
Yeah. Thank you, Professor K. Rangappa, sir, presenting a keynote address. So K. Rangappa has stressed the science behind the virus and the multi-pronged strategy, how the strategy it should be collaborated with the WHO to fight this pandemic, and also positivity in our mind and strength to carry on to fight this disease. Is stressed on pranayama and health and other ways how to go about it. Thank you, sir. May I now request Professor Mohan Babu to present his views. Sushma Yadav will be joining a little later. Mohan Babu? Hello? In the meanwhile you can take questions, sir. So we can take one question from Professor Madurai Veeran. Professor Sushma Yadav is yet to join. So in the meanwhile, you can take some questions. That is, one question is, one question to all the panelists is, my query is regarding herd immunity. Is lockdown a solution to the pandemic situation? Is herd immunity going to develop in isolation? Sir K.S. Rangappa, I think you can answer this question.
Immunity.
Yeah, herd immunity.
No. Yeah. To some extent, this is a solution. See, when it spreads, community spreading is there. The herd immunity is inevitable. Herd immunity is inevitable. Yes.
Okay, sir. Then we have one more question. Why both central and state governments are not encouraging Indian systemic medicine for COVID-19 pandemic, except one by Patanjali?
No. But there are laboratories in the country, they are trying, but overnight you cannot do this. I mean, for the last 6 months, this coronavirus has spreaded, Yeah, but people are trying in every virology departments in CSIR as well as DST laboratories in the country. They are doing at their best. Of course, it will definitely come.
Yes, sir. Now, Professor Sushma Yadav has joined. Kindly bear, yeah. Namaste, madam.
Hi, madam.
Namaskar. Good
Yeah,
evening.
how
Good
are
evening.
you? Yeah, good evening.
Fine. Please continue. I wish to listen to you.
Yeah, I did. I finished.
You finished?
Yes.
That's so sad.
Yeah.
That's so sad.
I'm listening to you now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So is it my turn now? You know,
Yes,
we
yes.
had an alumni meeting today, so
Ah.
I couldn't have missed that. This is the first alumni meet.
Oh,
And you
oh,
know how important that is.
yeah. Nice that you could join,
Yeah.
I'll spotlight, madam, just a second.
Thank you. Thank you. So is it my turn? Should I start?
Just a second.
Or somebody will invite me?
Pandit.
Yeah. One second. Kindly wait for a moment. Namaste, Professor Sushma Yadav. Madam has joined just now. I welcome Professor Sushma Yadav for our inaugural session, the COVID-19 pandemic, the science and research towards a sustainable, healthy society. May I request Madam to present the special address? Over to you, Madam.
Thank you, Dr. Guru. My fellow panelists, Dr. Vijayalakshmi Saxena, General President, Indian Science Congress Association and Coordinator, Bioinformatics Infrastructure Facility Center of DBT, Government of India, and also former head of the Department of Zoology, Dayanand Girls PG College. That's quite close to us, Kanpur. The keynote addressee, Professor K.S. Rangappa, PhD, DSc, FRSC, Honorable Immediate Past General President, Indian Science Congress Association, Chief Scientific Advisor, and I see you have a connection with China, Shenzhen, China, and
Yes.
former Vice Chancellor, University of Mysore. And I can also see Professor Gangadhar, Convener, Indian Science Congress Association, Bangalore Chapter, and past General Secretary of ISCA, and Dr. Guru Pandita. I think I can see you four on the screen, and other panelists who may have joined you already, honorable experts, scientists, and all the participants of this webinar. I think I'm a strange one or odd one out, but Guru Pandita is also there. So it's political science, social science mixed with science. It is a pleasure for me to be with you people. I won't say to be part of it, but to be with you, because science is something which comes after knowledge. Knowledge which gets verified, we understand as science. That is jnana vijnana. That's the difference between the two. And the whole world is looking at you to find the origin of this pandemic. The subject is very interesting. I would compliment the organizers, the Indian Science Congress Association, and especially Professor Rangappa, who talked to me about this, and Dr. Guru, who must have suggested my name. Professor Rangappa called me, and so I agreed, because your topic is the science and research for a sustainable, healthy society. And I think sustainability remains a very, very crucial aspect of it. Because COVID-19 is a pandemic, we are all bothered about it. We are all feeling insecure. We are all feeling worried. We are feeling stressed. Lots of side effects of this pandemic can be seen. We find COVID warriors who are fighting this in different positions and forms. I can see Dr. Mohan Babu, who represents us in Nottingham, a very premier university, and I think you're carrying the flag of India there as much. It is a world problem now, global problem, as see. And I said earlier, there cannot be a better evidence of globalization than this virus, which starts from Wuhan and goes to Milan and spreads all around, from Milan to London, and from London to USA, Europe first, and then USA, and then Latin America and Asia Pacific, etc., all around. So it's traveling globe-wise, and it's showing us how vulnerable we are. I would not like to venture into the origin of the pandemic before you scientists, because you are experts and you must have done your research in this. But what I could see, because when you gave me this responsibility, I also tried to look at it from the perspective of a social scientist. because sciences without integrating society into it would not really yield much, and that is the basic purpose. If you integrate man, nature, and science, we would lead to a healthy, sustainable society. Whenever you separate them, they can't be a pleasure in itself. You know, research can be a pleasure in itself, but scientific research, or any research for that matter, I would say social research also, the basic purpose of all that is to improve the quality of life, quality of existence, and maybe human existence as such, so that we live better, so that we think better, so that we even study better, so that we research better, and ultimately we come back that we improve the living or we live better. So that's what we look at science as such. And when I tried to see it, the SARS, the emergence date in Guangdong, China, it's November 2002. And it takes almost like 10 years in reaching Wuhan, the same country. And then it spreads so fast. I really wish and exhort you scientists to give us this history, how it travels like this. Is it really originating from animals, as they say, or is it a mix? I'm talking to you as a lay social scientist, not as scientist. So you'd be, when you are searching into the origin of it, you'll be able to tell us. It's COVID we hear was in existing, and not COVID in fact, but coronavirus. We read in the school textbooks as well. But COVID-19 is different from it, how it is different, and how it made us so vulnerable. Because even the most developed societies, or the so-called scientific, technologically developed societies of United States of America or the entire Europe, fell for it, or fell with it, I would say. They couldn't really understand the seriousness of it. So is it the limits of science, or the lack of evidence, or the poverty of evidence, or use and communication of evidence in research or scientific research, which is behind it? When I tried to see the relationship between science and the COVID-19 trends, then the major trend that I saw among writings on this was that, there is a skepticism about evidence of scientific research and the communication of that evidence. Because countries such as the UK, US, Sweden, etc., couldn't believe maybe that the virus can really move so fast, or they didn't move as fast. And there was very little understanding at that time, even among them, that the virus would become such epidemic. And that's something to really think about amidst the scientists. They are admitting, I hope you agree, but we've read about it. They are admitting that it is a once in a century evidence fiasco. Is it really so? Do the scientists also agree with that? Postmortem will bring out results, of course, but we have already faced the epidemic and the events are moving really very fast. We were thinking that we are a bit safe in India because it has moved slow, but now we say no, even the world is not safe. And the second wave of the epidemic or the virus may already be starting somewhere in the world, maybe China or maybe somewhere else. So how do we really go with it? Experts failed in this. And interestingly, in 2016, Michael Gove had said, when he ran up to a Brexit and said, Britain has had enough of experts, but we still don't know what reality is. So it's before the scientists to check this kind of experts researching on corona-like viruses or COVID-like situations. And till now, the UK's CMO, as he said, Chris Whitty, that we were led by the science and this crisis is led by the science. Is it really so? So it becomes a mantra for others than scientists who say, what was this science all about? that you couldn't really predict, you couldn't really foresee, you couldn't really warn us before this. You know, in India, we used to say that meteorology really fails. When they say it will rain, it doesn't rain. And when they say it won't rain, it rains. And it has happened now in the fact or in the case of a virus. And the official government line in UK recently was that at all times we will be led by the science to bring forward the right responses at the right time to this global pandemic. But for this time, they proved wrong, or they really didn't prove as right. So I would request you scientists, the eminent scientists who are there in this Science Congress Association, please engage with society and let social sciences also march with sciences so that we can understand the viruses better. Maybe the viruses also have become smarter and more complex that they want you to engage with society. And so clever chaps in Whitehall model, which came up with its flaws, you know, talked about this kind of engagement with social sciences. And that's why the SAGE, Scientific Advisory Group to Emergencies, a formal part of the UK government's emergency response structure, became open to the inputs of psychologists, anthropologists, historians, via the independent scientific pandemic influenza group on behaviors earlier. Maybe we move on like this, and we must also look into this, that social sciences create insights beyond the pure data of medical experiments or scientific experiments and scientific research. For instance, if you mix up sociologists and medical anthropologists with medical scientists, then they have shown that while wearing face masks may have certain health benefits, but it also sends important signals and provides a form of social glue by showing that groups are taking a shared collective responsibility for dealing with such viruses. So this is the social aspect of the medical experiments or touch. I would request again the scientists to be more open to openness among various disciplines. And being open would, I think, bring you open into public domain with your researches, which of course we all don't want to encroach upon your intellectual rights or IPRs as such. But I think for working for good policies, because my forte is policy, the scientists must also remain open for better policy making. What is the relationship between physical health and mental health? I'm sure this panel will address here. And the communication strategies must also be such that it maximizes trust among the people at large, on the researches and on the scientific expert groups which are constructed for this also, and the credibility of the information provided. And when fake news comes, because as social scientists, we see that there are certain discoveries, there are certain medical researches, and medical researches also come out because they are sponsored by XYZ. So it's a different kind of research. I'm sure you all understand it better than me, but if they are not genuine, if they're not real, then they should be rebutted. As much like, you know, in the beginning, we thought this coronavirus is coming from the bats or snakes, and, you know, all kinds of news were being spread around that we are vegetarians, so we are not open or prone to this, and we may be saved. But that doesn't happen. So such news also needs to be rebutted. And then if there is evidence, there should be a very fast-tracked review of evidence. In this COVID crisis, especially, this has come out much more into our minds also, and before the society and civilization also, that there has to be very fast, or the review of evidence during the pandemic also needed to be speeded up, and with unprecedented open access to sources previously behind paywalls. It was hidden, of course, and it must come out So using evidence for evidence communication, for creating right news and right evidence, and sending it rightly to the people who are affected by this, and then removing the cobwebs from the minds of people who are not into sciences also remains, I think, a duty of the scientists. I don't know why I was really involved in this, but I'll say Science of Using Science project by the Wellcome Trust talked about a cocktail of measures. So it has to be science, it has to be individual, it has to be society, it has to be various kinds of behavioral sciences. When they are put together, all these different areas, then we understand the human behavior, and we also understand the science behind this human behavior. So for a better research into COVID-19 origins, and also for a better research to bring the humanity out of this COVID-19, I wish and hope that scientists like you and the Science Congress Association that I am looking at this time would be able to give a clear direction to the understanding of this pandemic, to understanding of this COVID-19. And as a non-science person or as a social science person, I would say, please integrate society and man into it, and then have partnerships among various aspects of sciences, bioscience, biotechnology. I'm sure you are having it. And then let the younger people also work with you more innovatively. Of course, I can see young people in front of me as well, but younger people. And maybe we really have a research which is path-breaking. I look towards the Indian Science Congress Association, its office bearers, its members, to have an evidence-based research. And I really wish you are able to find out the origins also and the medicine also. Because if that happens, we can really lead the world out of this crisis. I would say thank you very much for opting me into this club of scientists, I would say, a privileged club. And I was happy to be part of this and share some of my stray thoughts with you. But I do thank you for this opportunity, and I wish you all something very, very outstanding may come out of this thinking together and this evidence-based research. Thank you very much, Professor Rangappa, Dr. Guru, and nice seeing Dr. Mohan Babu and Professor Gangadhar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam, for presenting what social science wants from science per se. Science and society should always go together, and any scientific research, it should be for the benefit of the humanity. So as Einstein says that the driving force behind science and scientific research should be what you can say the welfare of the society, humanity at the end. The science should serve the humanity at the end. So Einstein said that if he had known that his theory was used to discover bombs, he would not have come out with that discovery or invention. So why we brought in Professor Sushma Yadav is because she is the president of Indian Social Sciences Council, and it is called Bharatiya Samajik Vigyan Parishad. So we thought that Indian Science Congress and if Indian Science Congress and Indian Social Sciences Council, if they can come together, we can have a middle path, a blended view of what the society ought to be. So thank you, Professor Sushma Yadav. May I now
thank you. Thank you.
Dr.
And I can see
Sushma,
Dr. Madurai Veeran also.
Dr. Sushma.
Yes.
May I request Professor Gangadhar to present what of them to.
No, before that, Dr. Sushma, many social scientists have become great scientists in the world.
So I look for that in India also,
Yeah.
where it is, strict compartments or strict boundaries,
You can
Please
be-
break them.
You can be one among them.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Very nice, lucid talk
Thank you.
and very informative, Dr. Sushma.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Gangadhar?
Good evening, everyone. Honorable Professor Rangappaji, the immediate past General President of Indian Science Congress Association, Professor Sushma Yadav, the Honorable Vice Chancellor of BPS Women University, Professor K. Mohan Babu, the invited speaker from abroad, Dr. Pandita, and all the participants. On behalf of Indian Science Congress Association, I would like to extend our heartfelt thanks to Professor Sushma Yadav, the Honorable UGC member and the Honorable Vice Chancellor of BPS Women University for her excellent presentation on COVID-19. And she has also requested to merge the social science with other sciences of Indian Science Congress Association. We will bring it to this one to the Executive Committee of Indian Science Congress Association for needful medal. Thank you.
Sir, we have some questions. We can take some questions. I suppose NR has. Sir, you can ask the question. Dr. Madhu.
Hello.
Yeah.
Sir,
Yes.
my one question.
Yeah, you can ask the question, sir.
Where it is India, sir, present condition, what is our success rate for finding a solution to the COVID-19?
So this question can be answered, sir. Can you repeat the question, sir?
Sir, what is the India's progress towards getting medicine to COVID-19?
What is the progress?
Yes, sir. Rangappa sir, you can tell, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, Professor Rangappa can answer this question.
Yes, 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 sir.
Many virology departments of CSIR and
Namaskara, sir.
Namaskara.
Sir. Mysore, sir.
Oh, so many of the laboratories are working very hard.
Yes, sir.
Probably, since the mutations are different, they are trying elsewhere, and definitely, I am sure India will also be like limelight to see that the medicines, also vaccines are come through.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's working day and night. If you look at the CSIR and DST laboratories, they are
Yes, sir.
working very hard. We have very good scientists. Of course, no country has come forward to say that we found the medicine as well as the vaccine. But India is also in the pipeline.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Professor Madurai Veeran has one question, sir. Madurai Veeran.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
You see, you told that social scientists have achieved a lot in the world. Thank you for that. And the role of social scientists in controlling the pandemic is that they can create awareness about the not afraid of the pandemic, because the social distancing and other such behavioral changes can be infused by social scientists at the field level and the community level. For that, the volunteers and the schools, colleges have to take more steps so that the pandemic may be controlled. Thank you for the opportunity.
Anybody wants to comment on that? Dr. Mohan
I
Babu?
don't think he needs an answer. He's a social scientist like me. So I understand. He says we can be, helping the scientists by creating awareness and sharing that among society. But the awareness points will come from the scientists, of course. So we can be partner in, sharing and bringing it to the society much better, because social scientists are surely better communicators in many ways. We don't get confined to our labs as much because society is our lab, and therefore we can do that. And I think that's what Dr. Madurai Veeran must be hinting at when he talked about this. Thank you.
Dr. Jaishankar has one question. Dr. Jaishankar, you can ask the question. Dr. Jaishankar. That is okay. I'll read the question of Dr. Jaishankar.
I think he's written the question. So this question
Yeah.
can only be taken by Professor Rangappa or Professor Gangadhar.
Yeah. Dr. Jaishankar. Yeah. Yes, sir.
So my question was on the innate immunity. Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Yes, sir. This was with regard to what is widely being spoken, why the population in Southeast Asia is not so vulnerable. One aspect is the innate immunity that is being spoken. The other one is about the different vaccination that we take in India. So I want some light to be thrown on that fact. That's my question.
Yes, sir. I think Professor K.S. Rangappa can, sir. Sir, so his question is about immunity.
Hello.
Innate immunity.
Yeah.
Innate immunity of
Natural immunity in this population.
Southeast Asian nations.
Not all the human being has the innate immunity. No, it doesn't work. Innate immunity doesn't work for all the COVID viruses. Adaptive immunity should be, developed.
Yes, sir. But what he says is some kind of these Indians, Southeast Asian nations people, they have got their own immunity because of some innate immunity because of our food habits and other things. So we are somewhat more different from Westerns because they are more vulnerable. Yeah, Indians have more immunity compared to the Western people.
They have exposed, to their surrounding viruses, but similar, I don't think you can, compare that with the Indian community.
The scientists don't believe it, Dr. Guru. It's our feeling.
Okay,
and it may be, but if you really do experiments on these, then maybe you are able to give some evidence-based answer to this.
No, they might have exposed similar, exposed to similar viruses which were, not reported.
Maybe true.
Okay, sir. Okay. Can we go ahead?
Which were not reported previously.
Yeah. I think that is an innate immunity in Indians in Jaishankar from them. Thank you, Sushma Madam. Thank you for
Namaskar.
Namaskar. Now, may I now request Dr. Mohan Babu, joined from Nottingham University, UK, to present his paper, The Impact of COVID-19 on Mental Health. Over to you, Dr. Mohan Babu.
Right. Thank you all. I feel like I'm the junior among all these professors and the the kind of esteemed panelists. So I thank for this opportunity. My area of research is mainly with schizophrenia and the mental illness, with the neuroimaging, neuroscience part of the schizophrenia. But now this COVID-19 has left nobody to come to its arena. So I thought I will use this opportunity to, as a psychiatrist, as a clinical lecturer, I can contribute the way I can. So what I thought was, I'll talk about a couple of scenarios, and then I'll also talk about the kind of common issues which have been presented in the paper. So let me start with my slide. I'm not technically that savvy. Let me just open the PowerPoint slide. I hope you all can hear. Right, just 1 second. I'm trying to share the screen. If I manage to do that. Yeah, okay. Oh, I can see that the screen sharing is disabled. I don't know whether Dr. Pandit can help. Hello? Hello, Dr. Guru Pandit? Okay, while he's coming back, I'll start talking about the kind of clinical scenarios that I have encountered. And in fact, I could see in the chart that one of the doctors have mentioned about a lady who in Manipur committing suicide when she finally did come to know that it was positive, her COVID-19 test was positive. So this is the kind of crisis we are dealing with now. From one end, it's just simple like anxiety, generalized anxiety on a day-to-day basis, to this extreme of not able to cope, and then going to that extreme measure of suicide. So this is the kind of big crisis we are dealing with now during these unprecedented times. I can see that Dr. Pandit is back. If you can allow me to do the screen share. I think yours is muted.
You can share the screen now.
Okay, good. That's great.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you can see the PowerPoint?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, good, great, okay, right. So, like I said, I'll start, talking about this paper in a minute. This is one of the many papers which have come out during this COVID times. I'm sure you would have seen plenty of papers out there. I'm not a contributor on that. As I said, my area of research is schizophrenia. All these papers, in fact, you can notice that there is even a couple of spelling mistakes. This is like, this has come out in a quick time because of the COVID crisis. Yeah. So I'm going to talk about this kind of psychological impact on the mental health in general population using this review paper as the basis from Serafini et al. It's a collaboration between the Italy and USA. And in fact, as you guys know, Italy was severely affected, and so was Spain. So they had like first-hand experience of all of this. Yeah. So before I go into the details of the paper and the psychological impact, I thought I'll share with you some of the scenarios that I have seen, I have encountered. Keeping in line with the kind of that Manipur experience somebody has put in there. So I saw one gentleman, a 32-year-old man, who was originally from Poland, but he was working in England. Because of the COVID, he couldn't work anymore, and he became a new dad, and all this pressure added up, and there was this worry, this uncertainty. Humans can't handle when you don't know what's to expect. So this uncertainty of when this is going to end, how this is going to end, I think he went under a lot of stress over a long period of time, so much so that he suffered from frank psychosis. I don't know how many of you know exact meaning of psychosis. Let's put it this way, like losing touch with reality, having those kind of delusions and hallucinations, so much so that he started hearing God telling him things like from Bible. And one of the message he got was like, he's a sinner and he needs to take his eyes out. And unfortunately, he did take one of his eye out using a sharp weapon. And that procedure had to be done. I'm giving this extreme because could this have been prevented is the question that we need to ask ourselves. Could we have spoken to him? Could we have given him some counseling? Sometimes just the information sharing, that awareness goes a long way. And this is where, Madam spoke eloquently about the social science and all. I believe science is a part of day-to-day life. There is science in the tree, there is science in what you see, there is element everywhere. So science is part of us, it should be part of us. And we all should be having that social responsibility to give education and awareness, as well as understanding what's going on and getting the authentic information. So I'm not going to go into all the details. What I'm trying to list here is, from that extreme of committing suicide to harming oneself, to this extent of helplessness, extreme helplessness. Like one of my consultant friends, his mom suffered from stroke, and we desperately wanted to go and meet her, but it was not allowed during the lockdown. So he couldn't go. And that kind of desperation, that frustration, that uncertainty is what we are talking about when we are dealing with the psychological impact of this COVID crisis. And there have been cases when people couldn't attend the funerals; they have to do it through the video conferencing. So examples can be plenty. And I keep getting phone calls regularly from my friends and my extended family and all. Most of them don't have any corona symptoms or anything. They're worried, they're anxious, and they want to have that kind of reassurance, and they keep on asking. So this is the kind of background I wanted to. I'm sure you know all of this, but these are the times when we have to be more actively aware of what are the things that we are dealing with and how we can cope as a society. So now I'll go through the paper as briefly as we can, and it mainly lists out the kind of impact and the kind of risk factors, and then the protective factors and the preventive strategies that you can use. So in the background, in the introduction, the paper talks about the situation, how it unfolded. Some of you have already kind of explained that, and you all are aware of that, so I'm not going to go into the details. But it did spread very quickly, and it became a proper crisis at all levels. There is socio-economic crisis, there is psychological distress. These words sound big, but actually we all go through it, knowingly or unknowingly. We all are going through that distress. Yeah. So everybody has a way of coping, as their own mechanism of coping. That's the kind of that's the way we deal with as humans. Yeah. So this quarantine happened. All the non-essential movement was stopped. And then the hospitals had to bear the brunt of it, the burden of it. And they had to use these emergency protocols. I don't know how many of you are working or are familiar with people who are frontline in hospital. It's a different world altogether. As a psychiatrist, I work in Queen's Medical Center. It's a big district hospital. So every day going there with your PPE and seeing the mortality and the morbidity is really difficult. It's really painful, and that's where both the healthcare workers, and the general population are at the brunt of this. Yeah, they are vulnerable to the emotional impact and the psychological impact of the COVID. What are the general ones, themes of this impact? Like you all know, it's the stress, the anxiety, depression, and the uncertainty and frustration, like I said. And this fear, and fear is what make humans do what they do. Whether it's the fear of the government, fear of the law, or fear of your wife. It's but this fear, this generalized fear of that, what is going to happen? No answers. That is very difficult thing for the humans to deal with, and this is common to see during disease outbreaks. So what this paper does is, it not talks only about the COVID. It does the systematic review of the papers which have discussed about these kind of disease outbreaks at the pandemic level in the past. And it's always good to learn from the past, learn from history. Yeah, so that we don't do the same mistakes. Okay, so it talks about this background about new cases being started, and then the media point they highlight. I'm sure you also share that. Sometimes this kind of sensationalism by the media makes it leads to more harm than help, and not giving adequate information, and not focusing on only the kind of negative aspects, only the death and the disability, can be too overwhelming for the general population, and that can lead to extreme anxiety, which is difficult to deal with. And time immemorial, we know that during these kind of disease outbreaks, there is like panic behavior, there can be collective hysteria, to like I said, that helplessness, that hopelessness, and the desperation, and that leads to kind of proper psychiatric disorders. And also this question about science and the psychology and the kind of brain, they're not different. They're all interconnected, the mind and the brain. So if somebody is going through this abnormally elevated anxiety for months and months and years, they're bound to be more vulnerable to have a proper psychiatric disorder, mental disorder, or brain disorder, whatever you want to say. They're all like two faces of the same kind. So it's very important to recognize the anxiety in the beginning so that something can be done. Something can be done to prevent these kind of extreme scenarios that I have talked about briefly. So very important to understand that anxiety, very important to detect the dysfunctional processes and the maladaptive changes. They sound big, the simple way of looking at it is, somebody who starts worrying so much so that they neglect their day-to-day life, they neglect their family, that can happen, and they go into these extremes. These kind of maladaptive changes, small changes, and the dysfunctional way of going about it, they need to be recognized and they need to be detected early so that something can be done. Yeah. So this is in the background, and the paper then lists its aim about how it's going to comprehensively review. It's not like a big meta-analysis or anything, but it goes systematically about identifying both cross-sectional and the longitudinal studies which looked into this impact, psychological impact during the disease outbreaks. Again, it briefly talks about what the government and the society should be doing about it. Now, these are the studies. I'm not go into detail of each and every one of them. I'm going to briefly kind of give you some summary of all of them so that you get an idea. Things like a couple of studies which have been done on the hospital staff, and some of them are like surveys, and the hospital staff have to volunteer to fill those surveys. And there was an interesting one which was done on the horse owners, because this was done during that kind of outbreak of the equine influenza, or the horse influenza, you can say. And there have been studies which are done during MERS, that Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, and the SARS. Yeah. So the gist of all of this is, of course, like there are bias, there is recall bias, and there is this kind of a bias of the time and the reporting, and it's a self-selected group and there is no control. So you can go into the limitations of the studies, but the themes are common. Themes that come out of these kind of studies are common, which are things like pervasive anxiety and the post-traumatic stress. It's very important. We don't kind of we kind of forget. Let's say if this crisis is over, if we do come up with some kind of a vaccine or medicine, or it is over, but it is not over. It will be staying there for years and years and years because of the post-trauma related stress. Just imagine, like a pregnant woman who has been in the house for months and months and months because of this COVID-19 outbreak, because of the lockdown. She is going to have some kind of effects afterwards, even if it is over. So this is important to keep in mind, as well as the kind of psychological impact right now during this lockdown. Psychological impact of both the quarantine, lockdown itself, and also the uncertainty regarding the results, like one of the like doctors was pointing out. I'm sure the other professors and the scientists can talk about it, but it's not like they're 100% sensitive. There is uncertainty about many of these tests, the results, and then the way it is done, and way the WHO handled this crisis, and way the countries responded to. And in here, it's not only the science; it's the policymakers. It's the politicians which need to be kind of taken into account as well. So it's much more complicated, as you guys know better than me from the social science background coming from you guys. But all this would lead to lack of adequate information, which leads to pervasive anxiety, and we don't do anything about it, and there is no strategy to deal with any of that, and that leads to ongoing problems both now and in the future. And these studies talk about same issues, like same themes. Yeah. So yes, they are listed there, and some of them are like big studies using thousands of individuals, but almost all of them are like either self-reports or a tool being used, a tool like study 7, which stands for generalized anxiety disorder. So you can objectively try to quantify it, but still they are subjective tools. You have to report. The questions are asked, and you have to subjectively report, and that is very important, because if you ask somebody when they're in the middle of a kind of argument, the way they say might be completely different when it's all over. So we need to keep all this in mind. There is subjectiveness to these kind of surveys and the answers you get, but even though with all those limitations, I think these themes, the themes that emerge, they are pervasive, and they stick with the time. Whether now or in the past, the themes have been same, and they have summarized this in nicely in this slide, okay, as you can see, and things like uncontrolled fear, yeah, and that kind of a-specific, that's important. When fear becomes specific, it becomes phobia. If you are worried about cockroach, you can do something about. But if you're worried about something which you have no idea about, that's a problem. That's a big problem. And that kind of uncontrolled fear about something which is not specific, and the pervasive anxiety, boredom, frustration, loneliness with this kind of lockdown, it is really disabling. That kind of stuff. So these are the impact. And in the same slide, if you can see here, like they point out the kind of protective factors and also the risk factors, which we're going to briefly go through now. But this is the important part. Once you have this kind of impact, your well-being is diminished. You are not a well man anymore. Some people, like they present well. There is a word in psychiatry, we use something called masked depression or smiling depression. They come across as smiling. They come with a mask, but subjectively they are not well. And that is the bit, that subtle changes. That is the bit is very important to identify and do something about it. So once that kind of well-being is lost, well-being is reduced, then you come up with these kind of lifestyle changes, profound adaptations, and you can have frank psychiatric conditions because the brain can only cope with so much stress. After that, it either completely shuts down, like it happens in war, you don't feel anything, or you develop a psychiatric condition, whether it's depression or psychosis or all these conditions. And the lifestyle changes sometimes, like the existing lifestyle changes can get worse, and that can be a problem without even realizing. Things like alcohol dependence. It's not uncommon to see people drink more alcohol to cope, whether it's because of just boredom and loneliness, or because sometimes, again, the brain can't keep on thinking what is going to happen. So what do you want to do? You just drink and sleep, drink to sleep. Well, that's not healthy, but people end up doing that, and that can become a problem. Alcohol dependence is a major psychiatric problem as well. So things like that, too, frank depression can manifest because of this impact, and that's something we need to keep in mind. We have briefly touched on all of them, this kind of psychological impact. I know what happens. The one thing I want to mention is this, the pervasive anxiety. That is important to know. Again, anxiety is good. When you have performance anxiety, like, you're going for an exam, you're a bit anxious. That's good. You're going to do well, actually. In the sports, you're going to run well when you're anxious. But it's like the Dodson curve. Once the anxiety reaches a peak, then it's disabling. And when you don't know the reason for that anxiety, when it becomes pervasive, you're anxious from morning to night, then it's very difficult to come out of. And that kind of vicious cycle of thinking is difficult to break. And that's where it's important to recognize and detect in the early phase. What are the risk factors? I know this is not interactive. I would have loved to do some kind of interaction and check. You guys know about alexithymia or something, but
we want to interact later after your presentation.
That's right. Okay, I'll try to just go through. Right, alexithymia is described like long ago. It's in the poems and literature as well. Alexithymia is where you can't express, your mood, your emotion. You struggle to come up with words to describe the emotion, and you can always say many men have this, and it is normal. I don't know, men or women can have this. This kind of alexithymia where you have emotions which you find it difficult to describe, and when you have it as a trait, as part of you, you're born with this, and you grow up to be and using this, your lifestyle as someone who is not talking, who is not expressing, but still having those emotions. Thus, trait can be a risk factor. That can be a big risk factor, because it can happen in any disease outbreak, particularly during COVID-19. Just imagine a kind of elderly lady who has an opportunity to talk She talks about everything. She talks about missing her son and how sad it is and all. She may not be more prone. Everybody is unique. I can't generalize, but I'm just trying to explain this to you. She might not be more prone to a severe enduring mental disorder, whereas a man who doesn't talk to anybody, keeps himself, he is afraid to death. He doesn't know what to do. He is worried about his family. He's worried about his work. He thinks everything is going to end, but he doesn't talk to anybody. He just thinks and thinks and thinks and thinks. Those kind of alexithymic traits is a risk factor, and that's important to recognize. We don't do much about it. It is important to keep that in mind. And other kind of things that you're already aware of, inadequate supplies. And you'll be surprised, when in Toronto that kind of SARS epidemic broke out, they didn't have basic supplies, years ago. That can happen because unless the government is aware and it has planned, the supplies will be inadequate. And at one point, I think even now the concern is whether there will be any beds or whether any will be space for people when they die, for funeral.
Dr. Mohan, can you conclude in 2 minutes?
Yeah.
Another professor will be joining. After that, we can have discussion.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, okay. So I'm nearly there anyway. So these are the risk factors the paper talk about, and the protective factors are the resilience we are born with. That resilience and social support. And resilience is again an inbuilt trait. I'm sure you guys know. I'm talking about psychological resilience, dealing with in the healthy way when faced with the crisis. And also social support goes a long way. So where do we go with all this? What are the strategies that can be done, the preventive strategies to help with dealing with such crises? As the slide lists, the communication has to be effective, both from up above the government and between us. That awareness and communication is important. And there has to be psychological services adequate enough. Health education need to be given, and the online platforms need to be kind of developed towards that. And also, protocols you might be knowing, but hospital needs to come up with its own designed emergency protocols that need to be implemented. So the paper goes on to describe how this can be done. And we are already using it. You guys are using through this webinar and all. So that telemedicine, that consultation, and making use of the digital technology like webinars or video consultations, that's very important to kind of make use of, to provide that much needed authentic information, and also give that kind of mental health support. And there comes a big role both for the society, the family, the friends, and to the professional psychologists, to psychiatrists, to make use of and make good use of the biological, psychological, and the social interventions that can be done to help prevent and also to treat these kind of psychological impact and psychiatric disorders which come from there. I think I am going to stop there, but I would be happy to take questions or any discussion afterwards. But there was one question about what is the advice. I think the general advice which I give to myself, will give it to everybody is.
Dr. Mohan, we can take it later.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
We can discuss that in.
We can at the end. You can give the suggestions.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So do I mute myself?
Yeah, it's okay, no problem. You're joined by the professor. Screen share. Professor Marisha, kindly wait for the news. Distance presentation. Share screen.
No thanks. No questions.
Yeah.
No questions about this presentation. Thank you very much. I have to do my presentation now.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you very much. I have to share my
I
my screen.
welcome.
Thank you very much for invitation for Guru for organizing.
Mauricio, I will welcome you. Wait. I would like to welcome Professor Mauricio Martinelli Luperi from Brazil on behalf of Indian Science Congress Association. He is a professor of economics in the Faculty of Economics, Administration and Accounting, University of Sao Paulo, Brazil. He will be presenting a topic on new developmentalism and macroeconomic policies for post-COVID-19.
Thank you very much for invitation, Guru.
What do you, Professor Mauricio?
Please, my theme of my presentation is about the new developmentalism and macroeconomic policies for post-COVID-19. Seminar divided in 4 parts: theoretical presentation of new developmentalism, characteristics of the inflation target regime of some economies in the world, overestimation of CPI impacts on inflation targets on the impacts on inflation tax on the exchange rate appreciation, possible economic policy prescriptions in post-COVID-19, the motivations of the new developmental theory formulated by Luis Carlos Bressa Pereira, FGV professor, was Minister of Finance, Brazil, Minister of Federal Administration and Reform, and the Minister of Science and Technology. Bressa Pereira leads a Center for the Study of the New Developmentalism in FGV São Paulo. Economic policies based on the classic developmentalism that occurred in Brazil during the debt crisis in the 80s and those that prevailed during the more liberal decade of the 90s were unable to resume the accelerated economic growth that occurred in the 50 years that preceded them. The decision called this new theory, new developmentalism, was made by Bressa Pereira in 2007. The new developmentalism theory, developing countries grow little because they face competitive disadvantages because about the appreciation of the national currency and in the long run, that explains the industrialization processes. This theory has a 5 macroeconomic price: the interest rate, the exchange rate, and the wage rate, with as a result of the correct administration of monetary, fiscal, and the foreign exchange policies, generate a favorable environment for the obtaining and the satisfactory rate and profit for companies to invest in stable inflation rate. Most important accounts, tax account and the current account of the balance of the payments in the developing economies. These 2 accounts tend to become imbalanced. According to Bressa Pereira, the focus of theory is exchange rate. Made difficult. Exchange rate control, there is a tendency for the national currency to overvaluation in developing economies. Current account, negative balance in the growth with the foreign savings. Appreciated exchange rate, appreciation of the national currency, generating negative impacts on our account. Imported goods are cheaper compared to the national goods. It discourages investments in the domestic industry, compromising economic growth and generating a process of the industrialization. Other aspect, our dependence on foreign capital to finance the negative current account increases through the direct investments, which are considered more effective, as they are supposed to drive internal investment, generating positive impacts on income employment. However, while the national currency is valued, there is not so much incentive for this type of capital to enter the country. Therefore, these external savings that would be beneficial in generate autonomous investment, raising it in the relation to GDP does not happen. Financial income is sent in the form of profits parent companies for the compromising the country's current account. With the current account deficits and the need to finance these deficits with the foreign capital, there is a very large inflow of dollars, which ends up valuing the national currency. This increasingly encourage imports and disencourage exports, especially in industrialized goods. The greater the counters, the country's current account deficit, the more appreciated the currency will be, and it will generate a greater negative impact on the industrial competitiveness of the national companies. Even balancing the current account would not contribute for the national countries, which produce with a state-of-the-art technology to be competitive in the international market. The government of a country the government of a country opting for a growth model with foreign savings encourages what is called the exchange rate populism, since the appreciation of the national currency allows for the greater consumption of foreign goods, while negatively impacting the competitiveness of counter national industry, reducing its share of GDP. Bessa Pereira points out that there is nothing against the multinational companies. The point is that there should be no current account deficits. When they bring new technology, when they do not involve the denationalization, the monopolistic infrastructure companies or of the strategic sectors of the national economy, they are welcome. Tendency of over-appreciation of exchange rates. Two main variables contribute to the over-appreciation of the national currency: the Dutch disease and the interest rate. The Dutch disease, Bessa Pereira defines Dutch disease as an over-appreciation of the national long-term currency caused by exports of commodities that do recurrent rents or higher prices in the international markets can be exported with the national currency substantially appreciated, which is not the case with the products of the industries that produce with the highest technology. Developing economies that export many commodities may have an exchange rate close to the current account balance, but for there to be an industrial balance, that is, so that the goods of the industries that produce more high technology could compete internationally. A more depreciating national currency will be necessary, like China, for example. It's in past, for example. It's necessary to neutralize the impacts of Dutch disease causing the national currency to appreciate. For that, Bessa proposed to raise the current equilibrium exchange rate, depreciating the national currency. Achieving this objective is in addition to favoring industrial companies, national, industrial companies, will generate current account surplus. This will imply current account deficits on another account, naturally. We will see the end of presentation how cancel the effects of that disease. To support the growth policy with the foreign sales, the government would increase the interest rate in order to attract foreign capital, generate an increase in public debt and an increase in imports, which causes the deficit in current account that will be financed by foreign capital. This movement causes the appreciation of national currency in the long term, except in times of crisis. This result causes a process of the industrialization and almost stagnation. The interest rate, the right basic interest rate that attracts foreign capital for investment in domestic public debt securities, causing exchange rate appreciation. The question is how developing economies that adopt the inflation target regime could have a lower interest rate, minimize the effects of appreciation. The first hypothesis is that some inflation targeting regimes in developing countries has very strict as two rules, which impacts the interest rate more than necessary for the inflation to be controlled. The second hypothesis is that since the CPI calculation is based on the fixed basket of goods, the substitution effect is not considered. So it's overestimated. Here I did a presentation, several countries, inflation target regime about the developed countries. I make presentation. So the main characteristics this country is flexibility in the inflation targeting. In developing countries, it's opposite. It's very strict rules for the inflation targets to have credibility. It's a problem in determination of the inflation target because strict rules for the inflation target provocate a determination of interest rate. The biggest interest rate impacts on the public debt and between other things. Long presentation, but other problem of the interest rate in the developing countries that attracting foreign capital and the over valuation of the exchange rate is overestimation of the CPI impact on inflation tax and on exchange rate appreciation. The CPI is an index that is used as basis for verifying inflation in most countries that use the inflation target systems. A characteristic of this index is that it calculated using fixed basket goods. This means that the CPI does not capture the substitution effect. For example, when the price of meat goes up, the substitution for chicken is often made by the consumer. Therefore, the CPI overestimation inflation. Given this overestimation of inflation by the CPI, the country's economic policymakers who adopted the inflation target regime based their expectations on the overestimated index. Our assumption is that when the inflation expectation is higher and the decision of the monetary policymakers is to increase the basic interest rate, It leads to an increase in the interest rate more than necessary to control inflation. It undermines economic growth and the public debt. In addition to adjusting index contracts with the CPI more than necessary, diminishing real GDP growth. Possible economic policy prescriptions post-COVID-19. There is an alternative option for the developing countries that does not want to grow with foreign savings, current account deficits. New developmentalism offers alternatives of economic policy for these, since the problem of the overvaluation of the national currency has two main causes: the Dutch disease and the high interest rates. What must be done to cancel its effect? First, how can we neutralize the impacts of the Dutch disease on the exchange rate? And secondly, how reduce the basic interest determined by the inflation targeting regime? How to cancel the effects of the Dutch disease? Place tariffs in a linear manner on imported goods. This measure was part of the import substitution process in developing countries and was criticizing the aids when the PSI succumbed. However, Bresson Pereira points out that there is necessary protectionism. It only occurs the tariff on imports contributes to a rate above the industrial equilibrium exchange rate. The tariffs charged in a linear manner can be the subsidized the export of manufactured goods, which must also have a linear subside. As today, the World Trade Organization prohibits their practice. Bresson then proposed a tax on the export of commodities that generate Dutch disease and that varies according to the variation of this price. This will mean a reduction in the supply of this commodity and consequent receipt of less foreign exchange for it. Generate exchange devaluation. In the words of Bresson Pereira, the current and the industrial balance are equal, and the new equilibrium established by the market for the exchange rate. Apparently, commodity exporters would lose as they were taxed. However, this is not the case, as they will be compensated by the devaluation of the national currency that will contribute to the increase in the in exports in the medium term. In the new developmentalism, the state must so carry out and the exchange rate policies that neutralize the tendency to over appreciation of the national currency. Not only cancel the effects of the Dutch disease, but also reducing interest rates. To control the interest rates, it's necessary for the government to reject the growth policy with the external indebtedness, to control capital inflows, and not adopt the exchange rate anchor to control inflation. Bresson Pereira is in favor of the balanced public budgets when it is not in crisis. But there are also other ways to reduce the basic interest rate. Let's see how minimize the effects of rising interest rate in developing countries that adopted the inflation targeting regime. In the beginning, the flexibility of the inflation target regime is more difficult, given the need to gain credibility. However, over time and with the gain of credibility, it's necessary to make the rules more flexible. as this will reduce the cost of monetary policy in terms of income and employment growth. In the first moment, some countries, such as New Zealand and Canada, removed items whose prices are more subject to seasonal shocks from the core of the CPI.
Sir Marshall, sorry to interrupt you. You've got 3 more minutes to conclude. You've got 3 more minutes to.
Okay, I'm finishing. Other countries will extend the period to reach the target, minimize interest rate costs of and GDP growth. Therefore, the adoption, the flexibility of the inflation target regime must be an objective time. Another way minimize effects in interest rates is calculating overestimation of inflation caused by use the CPI as the USA started in 1995. The overestimate calculation economic policy could minimize overestimate expectation and raise interest rates lesser extent. As a result, the impact of tendency, the appreciation of national currency would be less, contributing to greater competitiveness of the domestic industry. In development countries, with the average of this overestimation in new legislation, new contracts indexed by CPI could contain a discount clause this overestimation. In addition to the impact of interest rates caused by overestimation of CPI, other implications for the budget and GDP open a wide range for research. Thank you very much for the.
Thank you, Mauricio, for the presentation.
Thank you.
So you have
some question.
New developmentalism and macroeconomic policies for post-COVID-19. You stressed on Dutch disease and the concept of Dutch disease and alternative economic policies for the developing world in tune with the World Trade Organization. Thank you, Mauricio. Please be stay tuned with us for questions and answers. Yeah, now we can. I welcome Professor Dr. Nitin M. Nagarkar from. He has joined from AIMS Raipur. Yes, sir. Welcome, sir. So, you have any questions to ask?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, all the entire team. My special thanks to Professor Gangadhar. He told me yesterday evening, and I was very, very keen to join this today's session. A wonderful session we've had. And I think first I'll talk about Dr. Mohan Babu. He's given a wonderful presentation about how this mental health, the impact of COVID-19. We all have been facing similar issues. Unfortunately, telemedicine has made a lot of difference in our part of the country also. And in fact, this particular pandemic has helped us understand teleconsultation, an entirely new dimension that we've been able to see. My only issue was to Dr. Mohan Babu. My question was, wonderful presentation from Nottingham. Thank you very much, first of all. My question was, what do you do for those patients whom you think would now require inpatient care or a direct, care of one-to-one physical, involvement of either the caregivers, whoever they are, it could be the psychologist or it could be the psychiatrist in the hospital. So how do you manage that? Because otherwise teleconsultation is doing very well. It's only when you have to transport those patients maybe to the next center, wherever it is.
Yeah, so that's a good question, and thank you for your comments. I think it comes to preparedness, as you can appreciate. So when this COVID crisis broke out, wish all the countries could have done a bit more, particularly on the mental health side. They did prepare for the beds. They did prepare for this kind of fiasco situation when things go wrong. But when it comes to psychiatry and the mental health, I don't know the kind of all the gross realities in India, but generally my feeling is that it would have been better to have more preparedness. more kind of these kind of facilities, because you need to have a kind of seclusion area. You need to have resources both from the staff and your PPE equipment, the resources, and the day-to-day managing of it, like you mentioned, that kind of intensive care where you have to give one-to-one support. And that cannot be done without much preparedness. And in here, we have been fortunate in a way until now, but I can see that the crisis is not over. It's only, kind of in the beginning now. Because of the lockdown, people haven't come out. And there is good chance that there are genuine psychiatrically unwell patients out there who are going to present to us in the next few weeks to few months in a very kind of crisis situation where we need more beds. Are we all prepared? I'm not sure about that, sir, but I think it can be managed. It can be managed, at least in Nottingham and the UK. I can say that there has been a kind of a high level consultation and discussion about that. And there have been plans in place, things like part of the wards have been converted into COVID wards, and the staff have been trained, staff have been all fit tested, and there have been resources. So we are ready, we are prepared, but I don't think this is such an unprecedented crisis that anybody can confidently say that they're fully prepared.
Excellent.
Yeah, Maria Kuti has a question. You can ask the question. No, I'll read out the question. Sir, the question by Maria Kuti, sir, can any alternative measure can be a sufficient solution to mental difficulty faced by the people? Dr. Mohan.
I guess the question is for me. I'm not sure exactly the meaning of the question. So are we talking about alternative medicine?
Measures she has used the word.
Alternative measure
or medicine, or how
to the mental health kind
can
of,
be a sufficient solution to mental.
Okay, let me start from the beginning. The idea is to try and prevent going into mental health crisis, going into this kind of psychiatric disorders, and that can be done on a day-to-day level. Yeah. So whether now or afterwards, I'll like to share some few general tips. Yeah, to do what not to do. But if the question is about any alternative system or alternative way, I'm not sure whether I have the expertise to talk about it. But there are things like, from mindfulness to yoga, meditation, and there are other approaches which can be used along with the psychological care to help on day-to-day basis. I hope that's what audience is hinting about. But if it is a bit more specific, I would like to hear what exactly is the question. But I don't know whether you want me to say that advice tips now or afterwards. I just want to give general tips if that's helpful.
Take that later.
Yeah.
Then,
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I think she's now on. Yeah.
She's now on. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your reply.
Maria Kuti, are you happy with the answer, or you want to ask the question again? Any supplement?
Yes, I'm happy and satisfied with the answer.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And there is one more question by Dolly. Sir, my query is regarding mental health. If someone is already under stress regarding career, settling, etc., how he or she can will try to deal with the mental stress issues consciously?
That's a good question. The first thing to realize is we are all under stress. This is not a kind of predictable situation that we are in. There are many unanswered questions, so we are all under stress. So it's universal. That's first thing. The second thing, and the most important thing I would say, is we need to accept this stress, this anxiety, this low mood, whatever you want to call, accept it as part of life, as strength, not as weakness. That's very important. Like I gave one example. It's good to be anxious to write the exam. It's good to be sad when you have an argument. If you have a big argument and if you don't cry, something is not right. So don't go to the extent of thinking that I am weak. This is my weakness. I'm already going through stress. Now this COVID has come. I can't cope. No, actually, like our resilience is unbelievable. And the humans come out with their best kind of coping mechanism when they're faced with the intense crisis. Otherwise, everybody would have been dead by now. With all, we have the world has faced so many disasters like disease outbreaks, the wars. I know we can name thousands of them. We have all survived that and we have reached there, and science has given answer. Will give answer on a general level. At the individual level, my advice is accept that it is okay to be a bit of stress, because there is enough reasons to be under stress. Live day to day, live in the present. There is no point in, like, what is going to happen tomorrow? Something will happen. We need to plan for it. We need to prepare for it. But we don't have to spend all the time thinking about it. So think yourself as equal or even better than average people out there. You will do well. Just accept and use your resources, both the internal resources and the support that you get from the family and society. That would be my answer.
Yeah, we have got one more question from Pooja MD.
Okay.
Sir, now currently we are in the second phase of infection of COVID-19. Still, we may undergo how many phases of infection? How many phases of infection we may yet to have? Because we are in second phase of infection now.
I guess this is not for me. Is it for Professor Rangappa?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Sir, this is the second phase of infection. Are we likely to have some more phases? You have to unmute, sir. You have to unmute.
See, second phase is very critical. Any number of phases it can happen, but if you look at the activity of that virus will go down definitely. This second phase, probably community spreading, that will be in the second phase itself. We all scientists hope that by second round or second wave, becomes inactive hereafter. The community spreading, what you call herd immunity, that's what the prediction of the scientists. Subsequent phases, it can happen. It may not be that effective as the first phase and the second phase. One need not have to worry after the second phase. Okay. The spreading is fast now, the second phase.
And sir, we have one more question.
Yeah.
What is the progress made for vaccine production in India?
Yeah, but I said in the very beginning to one of the questions raised, CSIR and DST laboratories are trying very hard. We have good virology labs, on par with the any Western laboratories. DST has come forward for the kit, testing kits, and likewise, few other laboratories have come forward to give the kits, testing kits. And now, as regards with the vaccine and the medicine, medicines, everyone is trying, one or the other, methods like chloroquine or hydroxychloroquine, whatever. So far, people are trying, and the patients are, definitely, get through with that medicines. So vaccines, as I said, probably it takes at least 2 to 3 months, definitely, in my opinion.
Okay, sir. Yeah, I want to ask a question to Dr. Mohan Babu. You spoke on pervasive anxiety, and also very importantly, you highlight the role of media in narratives, coming out with narratives in a negative way. Yeah. It is creating a lot of stress on the humanity as such. So is it possible we need to, I personally feel that media should be controlled when they are going to relate when they are going to come out with the issues of COVID, death and burial. So that is a major issue. We can look at it.
No, that's a good observation. I don't think I'm qualified enough to talk about the guidelines, but I want to share my opinion, of course. There needs to be guidelines for the media to kind of stream what is relevant, what is helpful, what is appropriate, rather than what sells. I don't think those guidelines kind of apply internationally, not only in India. And that one aspect we have to be very careful about. So that's about the policy making level, and that we need to be influencing as a group of scientists as well, because the information that we share with the public has to be the official, authentic information, whether it goes through social media, the print media, or the visual media, or through the kind of government releases, information. That would be better in an ideal world. But nowadays, and that was going to be one of my tips as well. You can't blame only the media. Media is doing it because somebody is watching it. We pay to watch it. So as general public, it's very important that we raise our own awareness and we try to collect the factual information, the facts, rather than going by rumors. Because if you love watching some TV channel selling you this kind of sensationalized media, then you are going to get it forever. It's very important to try and gather the facts. And once there is no audience, I'm sure media won't go into this kind of sensationalism. But it's a long way to go. There has to be a balance, and there has to be coming from both like bottom up or top down approaches to help with this.
And there is one more question by Dr. Asha Gupta. What are the precautions to be observed for asymptomatic patients?
Oh yeah, so you mean like general already psychiatric patients, but they're symptom free. What are the precautions? Yeah, that's a good question. That monitoring is very important. Either whether you do it with telepsychiatry or telemedicine, even without symptoms, even like I mentioned before, even if somebody is presenting well, not necessary that they're symptom free. So it's good if you have resources to do active monitoring and follow up. That includes asking direct questions. Many a times people don't open up, and you'll be surprised when you ask them direct, closed questions like, "Did you feel so bad that you wanted to, end your life?" Or I don't know. From that extreme to how is your relationship with your wife? Domestic violence becomes more during this crisis. Alcohol dependence becomes more during this crisis. All the psychiatric disorders are more become predominant during this time. So it's very important to ask sensitively, but still inquire about this kind of direct information. And once you get it, offering that reassurance and then saying goes a long way, for these patients, if they're able to vent it out, if they're able to share, and if they know that there is a professional or somebody who can understand and offer them support and care and some kind of treatment, I think that would go a long way. So it's very important to do that kind of active kind of monitoring and follow-up of that.
Yeah, there is one more question from Sainan. Have there been instances of infection in people who have recovered ones?
Yes, they have recovered. Yes.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yes, recovered. Yes.
They are recovered.
There are chances, yes.
Okay, sir. So we are finding, maybe Mohan can touch upon it.
Yeah.
But sir, now maybe the second phase is almost at the end stage in China and other corresponding countries, but still we are not coming across the end. And moreover, we are finding very different kind of abnormal cases. So what is your opinion on this?
Right. Okay. So again, the facts from the public health side are from the emergency medicine and the acute medicine. I'm not qualified to give you those facts because it's very important that you guys seek those facts, that information. Yeah. But from what I have seen, what I have observed, and what I have known, yes, there can be different manifestations of the same virus. Like some people can have more respiratory problems, some people can have gastrointestinal problems. So manifestations can be different. But unless it is proven by science, please do not go by these rumors that everything is COVID related. There might be coincidental medical problems going on which may not be COVID related. But unfortunately, this kind of fear makes you believe that, and you live with that. Like whether children are coming up with new kind of symptoms, like all gloom and doom, kind of stories that the media might give it to you. Please don't go with them until you have solid evidence. That would be my advice. Like it's a we know that the virus the mutation can change, and it's not new thing. We know that the diseases can manifest in different ways. That doesn't mean that we go into this panic of thinking that whatever is the medical thing going on is COVID related. And I get these phone calls day in and day out from my friends from India and everywhere. Like, I have sore throat, I have this, that, I think I have COVID. No, you don't, because there is no evidence. It's not a fact. You have, whether because of the age or whatever, you have some symptoms, which is good to have, because some of these symptoms are protective mechanisms. Like having a bit of pain, having a bit of cough can be protective reflexes. So do not go to the extent of getting panic into that. At the same time, be prepared, get the facts, get tested, and do follow these kind of hand washing and the mask and the social distancing, which sadly I think people are already forgetting now that the lockdown is over. The lockdown is over, not the virus. So stick to the social distancing, please. That is going to help you.
Okay, sir. Professor Dr. Nitin M. Nagarkar, do you have anything to say by your experience?
Yeah.
At AIIMS?
Yeah, thank you so much. We've got a lot of experience now for the last almost 4 months. We ourselves have treated more than 650 COVID positive patients over here. And I would very much agree with Dr. Mohan Babu that the bulk of the cases who came to us had milder infections. And I would say that when they came to us, they definitely were under stress. They had heard about COVID, especially the stories from China and maybe Germany or Iran or wherever, and they were definitely under stress. Majority of them made an uneventful recovery. And I think, like Dr. Rangappa had mentioned, that there are a good number of medications which are now being under trial, whether it is hydroxychloroquine or favipiravir, various antiviral drugs. So even we have been approved for plasma therapy and so on and so forth. But the majority of patients only required symptomatic treatment, but psychiatric or psychological support was essential. And it was very interesting that even the doctors or the nursing staff or any other healthcare workers who were involved in this kind of management, they themselves were under stress in the initial period. When they spent a few days in the hospital and they found that these patients are doing well, everybody had a bit of fear with the PPE kit, and it was a different alien kind of a feeling for most of the medical professionals. Although as surgeons or people working in critical care, we know that we need to take protection. We do wear PPE kits of different type, even when we handle HbSAg or HIV positive patients. But this was an entirely different story. But when they were being discharged, these patients were extremely happy. We talked to them, and the kind of reflection that they had to talk about the wonderful work done by the healthcare workers. They said that there was panic when they came. Their family members were worried what's going to happen. They were not able to meet their family members, so we used to give them smartphones. At least they can talk to them. We had small children, with babies also, so we had to call their mothers also to be there. So different challenges we faced, but I'm very, very happy that the majority of them made excellent recovery. The issues were only in those patients who had comorbidities. Somebody at 70, 80 years of age, a chronic smoker, a past history of COPD or pulmonary tuberculosis. Some patients had HIV and they had other infections as well. Some patients with chronic kidney disease, end-stage renal disease, and plus diabetic nephropathy and other conditions leading. So the only mortalities which we had, about I think 11 number out of 650 patients, right, who made recovery. Otherwise, only they had comorbidities. Very few patients who had only true COVID, leading to, of course, the pulmonary complication or ARDS. 1 or 2 only, I think I can remember. But the bulk of them made recovery. So I think this is a point we need to highlight, that majority of them will make a good recovery. It's the comorbid patients which are going to have problems. They were sick anyway. I mean, so that's what I'm trying to tell. In fact, some of them had improvement in their COVID status. They became COVID negative, but their comorbid condition obviously was a chronic one, and then the patient would require that treatment in future as well. So it was a unique experience. I think that fear has gradually gone. That's a good thing while managing patients. But I agree very well with Dr. Babu that we don't take it to the extent that we become lax because of that. These measures of social distancing or personal hygiene, I think that remains forever. And I'm very happy that Professor Gangadhar invited me for this particular forum. We can discuss so much over here. I do agree. But I still feel that I also listened very carefully to Professor Luperi's talk. And my question was, we know that the economies of various countries, whether it's Germany or Japan or US or even most of Europe, had bounced back after the various wars and big problems that they faced. Is this post-COVID, when we are off the pandemic in a few months, hopefully from now, will we be going to see a new world economic order, maybe where the challenge has finally become an opportunity for all of us, at least for countries like India, where our Honorable Prime Minister is also so keen that we develop Atmanirbhar Bharat and all of us start developing, those industries which we were really waiting for with production in our own country. So my question to Professor Luperi, if he's available to answer.
Yes, Professor Mauricio Luperi had to leave because of his appointments.
Okay. Sure.
But as a political science student, I'm also with a little knowledge of political economy. So according to the IMF report,
right.
So the world is headed towards a negative growth. Only country which is registering a positive growth is China, 1%.
China.
Yeah. So India minus 4.5%, and we have countries like France, which is going to register minus 12%. So it's almost in general we will see a negative growth. So it's very difficult to bring back economy again to the mainstream, to the bring back to rejuvenate the economy. It will take a lot of time. So this pandemic has hit the health system, economic system, and the political will is required. And also we may be headed towards one of the worst recession, what the economists of the world predict. And how we can make use of the situation is very hard to know. We need professional advice from the international economists, how we can improve the economy. And one of the best way of dealing with this economic issue is the direct cash transfer to the people. I think it is one of the main, you can say that some main, what we can say, the policy decision of the government, which can alleviate the issues of reverse migration, poverty, and other things. Thank you, sir. Dr. Mohan Babu, your final tips.
Oh, right, yeah. Just the general one. It's more like common sense. I'm sure you all know that, all the audience know. But I thought sometimes the common sense is commonly lacking. So it is good to have that kind of a general overview of all this, and and then take a step back for all of us, and stick to simple things like stay connected, talk to people. Yeah, whether you think you have COVID, whether you have been positive, negative, stay connected. That's important. Yeah. And then difficult feelings you can have, accept the feelings and try to have control over that feeling. Our human brain is amazing. It is built to it's so that neuroplasticity is so big. It can help you in any time of crisis. So try to get on top of those difficult feelings. Yeah. Acknowledge them, talk about them, accept them, do something about them, but don't let them control you. Yeah, control those kind of difficult feelings. That's important. And also, simple things like I said, stick to the facts. Don't go by rumors. Yeah, and you need to feel prepared. That's important. It's not only preparing. You have to feel inside that I'm prepared. I can deal. Like when the parents have children, and if you have everything, like you have nappy ready and everything ready, you feel prepared that if something goes wrong, I'm prepared. That's very important. That gives you confidence. Okay, so get things in order, feel prepared, but don't live in tomorrow or in yesterday. Live today, live present, think about the present. That's very important. Okay. So, and like people say, count the blessings. We are all like walking, talking, smiling, and we don't, many of them have not much comorbid conditions. There is good chance that even if the COVID comes, we are going to deal with it if you feel prepared. So don't go into this rumor mill and get panic and things like that. And a very important thing, other thing is going to help you is be available to support others, talk to others, ask them, help them, so much you can. That altruism is the mature defense mechanism. You feel good by helping. That's the good way of dealing with stress, actually. It's like playing sports. Yeah. And coming up on sports, the last thing I want to say is take good care of your body. Look after your sleep. That's very important. If the body is in a healthy condition, good chance that your mind will be in healthy condition. Make space and time to do simple exercise every day if you can. Go for walks, maintain the social distancing, but go for walks, those kind of things. Look after your body, look after your sleep, stick to the facts, accept the difficult feelings, get control over them, stay connected, and try to stay happy and confident as much as you can. That's all I would like to say.
Thank you, Mohan Babu. So we are almost concluding now. So to summarize, we began with very special addresses of the panelists. So we had Dr. Vijayalakshmi Saxena, who delivered the inaugural address about sustainable health society, how environment and health can be combined together. Professor K.S. Rangappa, renowned chemist, has given a wonderful keynote address. Professor Sushma Yadav talked about how we can bridge the gap between science and society, science, social sciences, and fundamental sciences. And Mauricio Martinez Luperi came out with the new developmentalism, macroeconomic policies for post-COVID-19. So Brazil is one of the most affected states by COVID-19. So the economic angle to it, how to overcome this pandemic through public policy, state response is required to overcome this economic crisis, to bring back the economy to the main stream, and since main activity is still going on. So how to balance the COVID pandemic from health perspective, and how to control the lockdown, and to impose the lockdown in such a way that economy is not affected. So government is also in a dilemma, how to go about it. The cases are rising, but if the total lockdown is imposed, the economy will suffer. So it is a big challenge for our lawmakers, our state governments, and the central government. How to balance it requires it is a big challenge, and our Prime Minister and the government of India, they are taking many steps to counter the impacts of COVID-19 from the health perspective as well as from economic perspective. So Dr. Mohan Babu has delivered a very good talk on impact of COVID-19 on mental health. So we are living under fear psychosis. We are being impacted by the psychological effects of trauma even before the disease actually is infecting us. So we are living in a big traumatic state of affairs. So big stress. If some lockdowns happens at some point of your area, so entire locality is affected. In fact, just 3-4 houses from my home, it was sealed yesterday. So nobody is coming out onto the street. So it's a kind of a fear psychosis which everyone, including me, are undergoing. So you have given a very good narrative on how to balance it and how to go about it. And you received a lot of questions. You answered them pretty well. So you are the one at the receiving end of the questions. And thank you for answering all those questions.
Thank you.
Now I request Professor Gangadhar to present a vote of thanks. Professor Gangadhar is the convener of Indian Science Congress Association, Bangalore chapter. He was the past General Secretary of Indian Science Congress Association. Over to you, Professor Gangadhar sir, for presenting the vote of thanks.
Good evening to all of you. Honorable General President of Indian Science Congress Association, Professor Vijayalakshmi Saxena, respected Professor K. Rangappa, the immediate past General President of Indian Science Congress Association and former Vice Chancellor, University of Mysore, Professor Sushma Yadav, Honorable Vice Chancellor of BPS Women University, Haryana, distinguished most valued invited speakers, Professor Mauricio Martinelli Luperi from Brazil, Professor Mohan Babu from Nottingham University, UK, ladies and gentlemen. I deem it a great honor and privilege to propose vote of thanks on this great occasion of one-day international webinar on COVID-19 pandemic, the science and research towards a sustainable, healthy society. This international webinar is being inaugurated by the chief guest of the webinar, Professor Vijayalakshmi Saxena, the General President of Indian Science Congress Association. In her inaugural address, she has clearly stated the deleterious effects of coronavirus and the COVID-19 pandemic, which has shattered the mankind and global economy. She has also mentioned about the steps to be taken for the prevention of spreading of deadly coronavirus. Madam, on behalf of Indian Science Congress Association, Bangalore chapter, I would like to extend our heartfelt thanks to you. I would like to express our profound gratitude to Professor K.S. Rangappa, the immediate past General President of Indian Science Congress Association and the keynote speaker of today's webinar. In his keynote address, he has informed that the people of the country need not to be panicked about coronavirus. It is also a type of viruses like SARS, HIV, H1N1, Ebola, swine flu, and influenza. He is also mentioned about the transmission and how it is to be prevented. I am highly thankful to Professor Sushma Yadav, Honorable Member of UGC and Vice Chancellor of BPS Women University, Haryana, for her excellent presentation on COVID-19 pandemic. She has requested for the merger of social sciences with other sciences of Indian Science Congress. I would like to tell the madam that the matter would be brought to the notice of our General President for consideration. Today we had two most valued invited speakers from abroad, Professor Mauricio Martinelli Luperi from Sao Paulo University, Brazil, who spoke on new developmentalism and macroeconomic policies for post-COVID-19, and Professor Mohan Babu from University of Nottingham, UK, who delivered talk on impact of COVID-19 on mental health. Sir, your great presentations are memorable, highly informative, very pertinent, and has very good impact on the minds of the people. On behalf of Indian Science Congress Association, Bangalore chapter, I express our sincere thanks to both of you. I would like to thank Professor Guru Basaraj Pandit, the organizing secretary of webinar, for his guidance and support in organizing this great event. I'm also thankful to the technical staff who have assisted in organizing this webinar, all the ISCA chapter conveners and participants. My special thanks to Professor Nitin Nagarkar, the Director and the CEO of All India Institute of Medical Sciences, Raipur, for his participation and active interaction. My big thanks to Professor Ashok Kumar Saxena, the former General President and Executive Committee member of Indian Science Congress Association, for providing the opportunity to organize this one-day international webinar. Last but not the least, I, on behalf of Indian Science Congress Association Bangalore chapter, appeal to all the people of the country to follow the guidelines issued by the central and state government very strictly to fight the battle against the deadly coronavirus. My sincere appeal to all the senior citizens, children, and to all. Stay at home, wear masks, maintain social distancing, practice good hand hygiene and respiratory hygiene, wash your hands with the soap and sanitizers frequently, do not touch eyes, nose, and mouth, avoid crowds, stop spitting outside in public places, and be safe. Thank you, and thank you one and all.
Thank you.
I would like to thank Professor Gangadhar for presenting vote of thanks. I would also like to thank all the participants and all the attendees, webinar enthusiasts who have joined from across the world. It's a privilege and honor to organize this one-day international webinar on behalf of India's premier academic institution, the Indian Science Congress Association, which has rendered nearly 107 years of service to the nation. I'd also like to thank all the questionnaires who participated actively in the question and answer sessions. I'd also like to thank our technical team, headed by Shri Harsha, the software engineer, and also like to thank our research assistant, Shri Dayanand, for assisting in preparing for this international webinar. It's a pleasure, and we had a very good interaction with our panelists, and we had a very good question and answer sessions. And I would like to thank one and all for attending this international webinar. Thank you, one and all. Namaste. Take care.